So we're going to start by reviewing some of the properties of parallelograms. So yesterday we were looking at isosceles trapezoids. What makes a quadrilateral a trapezoid?
It has to have the two parallel lines.
So the way we say that is a trapezoid has one set of parallel lines. So I have a set of parallel lines like this, and then the other set of lines cannot be parallel. They have to be where they're going to intersect somewhere if the lines continue. So a trapezoid has one set of parallel lines. But today, looking at a parallelogram, they have two sets of parallel lines. So if I have parallel lines here running in this direction, then the other set of lines are also going to be parallel to each other. That's what makes it a parallelogram. Two sets of parallel lines. All right, so we're going to do like we did before. We're going to start listing some of the properties of parallelograms that we're going to use to answer some questions. So the first one when I have parallelograms, I know that I have opposite sides congruent. Opposite sides are congruent. So for instance, in my parallelogram here, if I knew this side had a length of 4, the side opposite that side also has to be 4. If I knew this side was 3, then the side opposite it would have to be 3. Opposite sides are congruent with a parallelogram. So let's use that property and see if we can answer this question. It says, looking at the parallelogram WXYZ, what is the measure of YZ? 3.27. Because the side opposite it is 3.27, that means YZ must also be 3.27. Easy enough? Okay, here's one that's a little bit trickier. We are now introducing variables into it, which is the way most of your problems are going to be. So this one here is 2 parts. It wants to know what is the value of x in this quadrilateral, in this parallelogram, right? So it tells me right off the bat it's a parallelogram. And then we want to know what's the length of every side. So what do I know about a parallelogram? Not a lot, but I do know I have opposite sides congruent, which means here I have side QR that must be congruent to side PS. So I could set those two sides equal. Or what could you do? You could take side QP and set it equal to side RS. Either way you want to do it, I can set one side and its opposite side equal to each other because opposite sides are congruent. So which one do you guys think would be easier to set equal to each other? Okay, why do you think QR and PS? And you can. I mean, it doesn't matter. For me, if I was having to do it, I would do RS and QP. And the reason I would choose those is because QP is just one term. It's just 4x. So I can see the math is going to be a little bit simpler with this one because it doesn't have a plus 12 like this one does, or it doesn't have a minus 3 like the other ones, right? So if you set 7x minus 3 equal to 2x plus 12, you're good to go. This shouldn't give you a problem. But I'm going to do the other one. I'm going to set 5x minus 3 equal to 4x. and then solve for x. So what's my goal here? To get x by itself. The problem is I have x's on both sides. So I need to eliminate one of those terms. So I would choose to eliminate 4x. How am I going to get rid of 4x?
Subtract it to 5.
Subtract 4x from both sides? Right, Corey? Yeah, absolutely. Just do it every day, I guess. 5x minus 4x is 1x minus 3 equals, there's nothing left over there, so it's 0. So now if x minus 3 equals 0, I can add 3 to both sides, which tells me x equals what? 3. So the first question, what's the value of x? X is equal to 3. Any questions about this process?
I still do it if you even chose to do QR and PS.
Yeah. What if you chose QR and PS? Then you would have 7x minus 3 equal 2x plus 12. Then what would we have to do? We'd have to subtract 2x. That would tell me 5x minus 3 equals 12. Then I would have to add 3. That tells me 5x equals 15. Then divide by 5. That would tell me x equals 3. So you can find x is 3 either way. Any other questions there?
There's just one more step on.
2. 2 steps longer. No, you're right. 1 step longer. 1 step longer. You're right. I'm wrong. Right? And B part now says, what is the length of each side of PQRS? So now that we know what x is, we just have to plug it in for the value. So I would start with QP. So what's the value of QP?
4x.
It would be 4 times x, but I now know x is 3. So 4 times 3 is 12. If QP is 12, what else is 12?
RS.
So I don't even have to plug in, right? Because I know opposite sides are congruent, so our S must be 12. Then I would do the same thing with the bottom one. I would plug into this one, because I like multiplying and adding more than I like subtracting. But it doesn't really matter. So if I plugged in 3, 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 12 is 18. And so if PS is 18, that means QR is 18. Because they are opposite each other, and opposite sides are congruent in our parallelogram. Okay, so this one doesn't give me any of the side lengths from the get-go, but it tells me there is a 600-meter fence around the city park. Okay, so what does that mean?
That's perimeter.
Absolutely. The perimeter, if I add up all 4 sides, I'm going to get 600. Right, so I don't know what this is. Let's call it a question mark. I know this is the same question mark. And then I don't know what Village Drive is,
Double question mark.
but they are, that's fine, double question marks. Okay? But I know if I add all of those up, I'm going to get 600. All right, they give me one more piece of information. They tell me that the fence along Chaco Road is twice as long as the fence around Grover Lane. So which one is a longer fence? Is it Grover Lane or Chaco Road? Chaco Road is twice as long. So what I would do is I would say, I don't know what Grover Lane is, but let me call it X. And if this value is X, then what is Chaco Road? If it's twice as long as X, it's 2 X's. I would take that value, X, and multiply it by 2. And now that I know Grover Lane is X, Chaco Road is 2X, what's Jones Road?
X.
What's Village Drive? Follow? And now if I add all of these up, I'm going to get, so do it.
6x.
Can you do it from there? You will get 6x,
6x.
and 6x should be 600, right? Because that's the perimeter of adding them all up. So we could say x plus 2x plus 2x, that is 6x, like you have mentioned. And then if I added all the sides, I should get 600.
100.
So that means that the x value is equal to 100.
So 200 on Chaco and Village.
Uh-huh. So Village Drive is 200, Chaco Road is 200, Jones Road is 100, Grover Lane is 100. The question is, what's the length of the fence along Jones Road? 100. 100 feet. Or 100 meters, sorry. So before we work this problem, let's learn a new property about parallelograms. So we learned that their opposite sides are congruent. Well, it turns out in a parallelogram, the opposite angles are congruent. Opposite angles are congruent. So that's nice. Something good we can use. But there's even something else that we're going to learn about the angles. We're going to learn that consecutive, that's the word they use, consecutive angles. So what do you think consecutive angles means?
Like they stay the same.
If somebody's won 3 consecutive championships, what does that mean?
Consistent.
But what does consecutive mean?
They stay the same. Good way to explain it.
If you won 3 consecutive championships, you won a championship in 2020, 2021, 2022. Right? You've done it 3 straight years. 3 straight times when they played it, you've won the championship. So, in this consecutive angles, if I go around, what angle is right next to B?
C.
So those would be consecutive angles. It's almost like adjacent. Right? You know how we call sides adjacent? Because they are touching each other? We don't want to use that with angles because the angles don't touch each other. So we use consecutive. So B and C are consecutive. C and D are consecutive. D and A are consecutive. A and B are consecutive. And you're right back around. So consecutive angles. So that means any angle plus the angle right next to it that's right in a row. Consecutive angles are supplementary. Okay, so there's a word we haven't used in a while. So what does it mean if angles are supplementary? Anybody remember?
I know it's something to do with 180. Is it whether they equal to be 180
Yep.
degrees?
If you add them together, you get 180 degrees. That's what supplementary means. So opposite angles are congruent. Consecutive angles are supplementary. So looking at this problem here, it says, given that this is a parallelogram, ABCD, what's the measure of angle A and the measure of angle C? Okay, so angle A is consecutive with angle D. So that means these two angles have to add to be 180. They're supplementary. So if this is 114, how could I find angle A?
Subtract 114.
Absolutely. So to find angle A, I'm going to do 180 minus 114. And that's going to tell me angle A is equal to
160 or 4. Wait.
Should be 66, right? I tried to do it in my head.
Yeah, I tried to do it.
Is that on y'all's
Oh, yeah.
calculator? Okay, so angle A then is 66 degrees. Okay, so the next thing it asks is, what's the measure of angle C?
60, yeah, it would be 66.
It would also be 66, right? Because it's opposite angle A, and it's consecutive to angle D. So C here would be 66. And then what's the measure of angle B? 114. Because it's opposite angle D, which is 114. So once you know one angle measure, you can find all the other ones. Pretty cool.